I'm going to show you how to crochet this stocking. So it's really small, really quick, really easy to do. If you do want to follow along, don't forget to save the video so that you can come back to each of the steps as you go. Here's everything I used. 35 grams of green yarn, 60 grams of white yarn, both with a weight of 4, 4.5 millimeter crochet hook, a yarn needle, and scissors. This is going to be made bottom up, starting with the toe, then this part of the body, then the heel, then the rest of the body, then the ribbing, and last the hook. I'm going to start by creating a magic ring. So I take the tail of the yarn, wrap it twice around my finger, pull this outer loop over the inner loop, pull the inner loop off my finger, and then I'm going to slide the hook onto that loop, and then this lower loop right here, that will become the magic ring. So I'm going to take this, make sure the tail is on the outside, and tighten that part. And then I'm going to hold on to the top right here. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to work 12 double crochets into the magic ring. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then to close the ring, I'm going to slip the hook out of that loop, and then from behind, I'm going to slip the hook into the third chain. And then I'm going to grab the loop and pull it through that stitch that I just inserted the hook into. And then I will take the tail of the magic circle and pull tight to close the magic circle. To start the second round, I'm going to turn and then chain 3. And then I'm going to do a double crochet, and then a double crochet increase, and then a double crochet, and then a double crochet increase, and repeat that pattern down the round. So I'll start with a double crochet in the first stitch. And then I'm going to do a double crochet increase in the next stitch. So that's just going to be 2 double crochets worked into the same stitch. So that's 1. I'm going to go into the same stitch again. That's 2. The next stitch will be a double crochet, and then I'm going to do an increase. And just keep repeating that down the round. And then since the chain 3 at the beginning of the round does not count as a double crochet in this pattern, and so what looks like a stitch right here is really just the top of the chain 3 from the last round. And so I'm not going to work into that. I'm not going to work into that stitch. And then if you count all the stitches you've created, there should be a total of 18, discluding the chain. And then I'm going to close the round the same way as before. So I'm going to stick my hook from back to front into the third stitch of the chain 3, making sure I get both loops. This can be hard to do. It's easier if you keep the chain loose. I'm going to start the third round the same way. So I'm going to turn and then chain 3. And then I'm going to do 2 double crochets and then an increase, and then 2 double crochets and then an increase. So this will be an increase every 3 stitches. So I'm going to do a double crochet into the first stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, and then an increase. So 2 double crochets into the third stitch. And just keep repeating that. So that's 1 double crochet, that's 2 double crochets, and then I'm going to do an increase. So just like the last row, this row is going to finish with a increase stitch, and I'm going to skip the top of the chain 3 space from the last row, and then as usual I'm going to close the round. There should be 24 stitches now. To start the 4th round, I'm going to turn and chain 3, same as before. And now I'm going to do an increase every 4 stitches. So I'm going to do 3 double crochets, an increase, 3 double crochets, an increase down the row. So I'll start with a double crochet in the first stitch, it's 2 double crochets, that's 3, and then I'm going to do an increase. So I'm working 2 into the 4th stitch. And just keep repeating this down the row. I'm on to close the row. Once again, I'm going to insert my hook into the 3rd chain. And that is the 4th round. To start the 5th round, I'm going to do the same thing as before. So I'm going to turn, chain 3, and then I'm going to do 4 double crochets and then an increase, 4 double crochets and then an increase. So every 5th stitch will be an increase. So I'll start with a double crochet into the first stitch, double crochet into the second, that's 3, 4, and then for the 5th stitch I'm going to do an increase. So I'm going to work 2 double crochets into the 5th stitch. And just keep repeating that down the row. I'm going to close the round the same as before. And that's 5 rounds, so now there should be 36 stitches total. 6th round is going to be very similar to the other ones. I'm going to turn, chain 3, and then I'm going to do 5 double crochets and then an increase, 5 double crochets and then an increase. So every 6th stitch will have an increase. So I finished the 6th round the same way I finished every other one, and there should be a total of 42 stitches now. I'm going to start the 7th round by turning, chaining 3, and now I'm going to do 6 double crochets and then an increase, and then 6 double crochets and then an increase. So I'm at the end of the 7th round. There is 1 stitch left. That stitch is an increase. So I'm going to do 1 double crochet into it, and then I'm going to do the 2nd double crochet, but I'm going to stop when there's 2 loops left on the hook so that I can switch colors. So I'm going to take the tail of the 2nd color, put that on the hook, and then pull through. And then I'm going to finish the row using the 2nd color. And that's the end of the 7th round. So there should be 48 stitches total. Make sure that the tail of the white stays on the outside of the stocking. Then to start the 8th round, I'm going to turn and then chain 3, same as before. And now I'm going to start doing V-stitches. So a V-stitch will have, I'll skip 2 stitches, do a double crochet, chain 1, and then double crochet in that same stitch again, and then skip 2 stitches, and then double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So I'll start by skipping the first 2 stitches. So I'm going to skip this one and this one. I'm going to work a double crochet into the 3rd stitch, and then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to work 1 more double crochet into that same stitch again. And just keep repeating this down the round. So I'll skip 2 stitches, work a double crochet into the 3rd stitch, chain 1, and then 1 more double crochet into that stitch again. And just keep repeating that down the round. Okay, so I'm nearing the end of the 8th round. And unlike the other rounds, I'm actually gonna include this chain 3 stitch as a double crochet because I want to make this round look seamless when I close it. So I'm gonna double crochet, I'm gonna skip these 3 stitches, double crochet into the base of this chain 3 that the start of the round is in. So right in there, I'm gonna work a double crochet. So it should look like this double crochet and this chain 3 are in the same stitch, just like all the other V stitches. And then I'll chain 1. And last, I'm going to close the round the same way the rest of the rounds have been closed. So to start the next round of V-stitches, I need to switch colors. And so there are 2 ways that you can do this. So you can either cut the white yarn, and then reattach it up here. And then if you do this, you'll have a bunch more ends to weave in at every single color change, which will be a lot. Or you can just grab the yarn and pull it up and start using it. So that's what I'm going to do. But if you do it that way, it's going to be important to pay attention to the outside versus the inside of the stocking, because we're going to have to hide all the yarn changes at the end by turning the stocking inside out. Okay, so I'm just going to grab the white yarn and pull it up to switch colors. So I dropped the green yarn at the outside of the stocking. I'm just going to grab the white yarn and pull it up. So to switch colors, I'm going to do a slip stitch. So I'm going to do a slip stitch into this chain 1 space here. So I'm going to insert the hook, pull up a loop using the white yarn, and then pull through. Okay, and then I'm going to turn, and then I'll chain 3. And then from here, I'm going to start the V-stitching again. So I'm going to start with a double crochet into this chain 1 space. And then chain 1, and then double crochet into the same chain 1 space again. And continue on down the row. So I will double crochet into the next chain 1 space, chain 1, double crochet into that stitch again. And so that's the sequence. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet into every chain space. When I get to the end of the row, I'm going to double crochet in the last chain space, and then chain 1. And then I'm going to use this chain 3 as the double crochet. So I'm just going to close the round the same way I closed every other round. And that's the second round complete. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep repeating this second row of V-stitches. So I'll start, I have not turned my work yet. I'm going to switch colors by doing a V-stitch into this chain 1 space. So I'll make sure that the white yarn, the tail of it stays on the outside of the stocking. I'll insert my hook into that chain space, use the green to pull up a loop, and then pull through. And then I'll turn, chain 3, and keep going the same way as before. So I'll start by double crocheting into this chain space, chain 1, double crochet into the chain space again. And keep repeating that sequence down the row. Once again, when I get to the last chain space, I'm going to double crochet into it. And then chain 1. And then I will end the loop by inserting my hook into the third stitch on the first chain 3 space. And that's the end of the round. So I'm just going to keep repeating this round of V-stitches where I switch color every other round for 4 more rounds for a total of 7. And as you do it, just remember that the tail of the yarn, every time you switch colors, needs to stay on the outside of the stocking so that all these switches stay on the same side, so we can just turn the thing inside out later. Okay, I'm going to fasten off with both of these colors now. Now I'm going to make the heel. Now I'm going to count 11 stitches to the right of where the green ended and reattach the white yarn to right there. And then I'm going to chain 2. Now I'm going to work 22 double crochets into the last row. So I'm going to start with the stitch that I attached the white yarn into. So that go into that same stitch again for the first double crochet, and then 21 more. Okay, so this is 22 double crochets finished. It should take up about half of the top round. And then the messy line from where I switched colors should be right through the center of it. So now I'm going to turn and then chain 2. I'm going to do 4 rows with 1 decrease at the start and 1 decrease at the end. So I'm going to show you what the decrease looks like. So I'm going to work I'm going to do a double crochet into the first stitch. And I'm going to stop with 2 loops remaining on the hook and start the next double crochet. Pull through 2, and then I'm going to pull through the remaining 3. And that is a decrease. And then I'm going to continue double crocheting down the row as usual. And I'll do 1 more decrease with the last 2 stitches at the end. Alright, so there are 2 stitches remaining in the row, this one, and I'm going to do a decrease across those 2 stitches. So I'm going to start a double crochet into the first one, and then stop when there's 2 loops remaining on the hook. And then I'm going to start a double crochet into the last stitch. I'm going to pull through 2, and then pull through the remaining 3. And so because we did 2 decreases, we went from 22 stitches to 20 stitches. And then I'm going to repeat this row of decreases 3 more times. So there will be a total of 4 rows of decreases. Okay, so I finished the 4 rows of decreases. There are now 14 stitches in the row, and I'm going to do the inverse of this. So I'm going to do 4 rows of increases and then 1 row of regular double crochets. So I'll start by turning, and then I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to do an increase. So I'm going to double crochet into the first stitch, and then I'm going to double crochet into that stitch again. And this is an increase because now there are 2 stitches where there used to be 1. And then I'm going to double crochet down the row as usual, and in the last stitch I'm going to do another increase. Okay, so I'm on the last stitch of the row. I'm going to do an increase in it. So I'm working 1 double crochet into the last stitch, and then I'm going to work 1 more double crochet into that stitch. And that's 2 increases in the row. So now there should be 16 stitches in the row. And I'm going to do 3 more rows of increases for a total of 4 rows of increases. I just wanted to point out that it can be hard to see the last stitch after in a row of increases. So it kind of looks like I'm on the last stitch right here, but that isn't actually the last one. The last one is right there. So it can be helpful to just count the stitches as you're going along to make sure that they're increasing by 2 with every row. Okay, so I finished the 4 rows of increases, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I'm going to do 1 row of regular double crochets. So there should be 22 stitches in this row, and there will still be 22 stitches after I do the row of regular double crochets. Okay, the row of regular double crochets is now done, and I'm gonna take this white piece I just made and fold it in half. And then I'm gonna single crochet down this row to close the heel, and then I'm gonna fasten off, reattach over here, and single crochet down here to close the other side of the heel. Okay, so I have this folded in half along the center, and I'm gonna start single crocheting along this seam. So I'm gonna try to hold this even and then insert my hook into the edge. So because this is a raw edge along the side, you're gonna have to create the stitches, like the locations yourself. And then, so I insert into both sides, and then I'm gonna pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through. I'm just going to keep doing that down the row. So I'm going to try to hold these two edges even. And now that I've made it down the row, I'm going to fasten off, and then I'm going to reattach to the other side and do the same thing. Okay, now the heel is complete. So this is going to look weird for now because at the end the sock is going to be turned inside out. Now I'm going to make the rest of the body. So I'm going to reattach the white yarn in the center of the back of the heel because that lines up with the ugly line again. Okay, so I'm pulling up a loop with the white yarn. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to start the V-stitch the same way as before. So I'm going to skip 2 stitches, double crochet in the 3rd stitch. So 1, 2, 3. And then chain 1. And then double crochet in that same stitch again. And just keep doing that. Okay, so it's going to start to get awkward near these seams. So to make sure that that doesn't happen, you're going to want to go, so you see how there's 2 stitches right here? Yours might look a little different depending on where you put the single crochets in, but I'm going to skip straight to this seam pretty much. So there's those 2 stitches, and I'm going to go directly into the edge of this double crochet down here. You can use your judgment with your stocking, depending on where the single crochets are, to make it look good, but you just don't want to create any large holes like that. So I made a double crochet, I'll chain 1, double crochet into that same edge again. And then I'm going to ignore the seam over here, and then I'm going to ignore this seam, and now the green edge is the V-stitch again. So I'm going to perform the sequence in the chain spaces the same way I was the last time you were crocheting on the V-stitch. So I'm going to go into this chain 1 space, double crochet in there, chain 1, double crochet in that chain space again. And keep doing that down this row. So I'm at the next seam and I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to work a V-stitch into the edge of this row of double crochets. And then I'm going to keep going down this row of double crochets. So I'm going to skip 2 stitches. So I'm going to skip this one and this one, double crochet into this one. Chain 1, double crochet into there again. And just keep repeat this down the row. Okay, so I made it to the end of the round, and I'm going to close this the same way I was closing them before. So I'm going to double crochet into the same stitch that the original chain 3 is in. And then chain 1. And then I'm going to take the hook out of that loop and insert it into the 3rd chain stitch from behind, like before. Make sure you're getting both loops. And then pull the loop through it. Okay, and now I'm going to switch to green, and I'm going to crochet around the round with green, and then I'm going to switch to white for the next row, and then switch back to green, and continue this pattern for 19 rows for a total of 20 rows. Now I'll make the ribbing. Okay, so to start the ribbing, I closed off the last round, and now I'm going to turn. And then I'm going to grab the white yarn and use that to chain 1. So I've chained 1, I'm going to chain 9 more for a total of 10. 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to do single crochets down this row of chains. So I'm going to skip the first chain, single crochet into the second chain. That's 1, 3, a total of 8 single crochets down the row. The first chain actually is the green one, and I'm gonna hide that just by tightening by pulling on the green yarn. And now I'm gonna single crochet or slip stitch, sorry, into the first 2 stitches along the top of the green round. So the first stitch will be this one right there. So I'm going to do a slip stitch into that. So that's 1 slip stitch, and then I'm going to go into the next stitch. It's 2 slip stitches, and then I'm going to turn, and I'm going to do single crochet back loop only back along this row. So I'm going to skip these 2 slip stitches I just made and start the row. So you're going to have to hold the white yarn out of the way as you do this, like I am here. And then I'm going to go into the back loop of the first stitch. And continue single crochet back loop only down the row. And then when I get to the end of the row, I'm going to chain 1, turn, and single crochet back loop only back the other way. When I get to the end, I'm going to work two slip stitches into the green row. So I already worked a slip stitch into this one the last time, so I'm going to skip that one and go into the chain space. That's 1, 2, and then I'm going to turn and go back the other way with back loop only single crochets and keep repeating that along the entire top of the stocking. And then when you get to the end, I'll show you how to close the round. To finish the round, I'm going to do a slip stitch down this seam. So I'm going to go into the back loop only to try to make this look as seamless as possible. And then this side doesn't have a back loop because it's the chain, so I'm just going to insert into one of these stitches. And then yarn over, pull through all of the loops. And just keep repeating that down the row. The last thing to do is to make a loop for hanging the stocking. So I'm going to attach the yarn right here where the ribbing ended. And then I'm going to chain 10. And then I'm going to slip stitch back into the same stitch that I attached the yarn to. And now I'll fasten off. The next thing to do is to weave in all these ends, and then I'm going to turn the stocking inside out.